Hello and welcome back to World 360. Why is US President Joe Biden traveling to Israel at this critical moment? What does the Spanish minister's criticism of Israel tell us about the lack of unity within the EU on the conflict? And finally, does IMF's new projections mean more bad news for advanced economies? We answer these and more in today's episode. First up, Biden's visit to Israel. On Tuesday, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Biden will visit Israel on 18th October or Wednesday to reaffirm the United States' solidarity with Israel. President Biden will underscore our crystal clear message to any actor, state or non-state trying to take advantage of this crisis to attack Israel, don't, said Blinken in his statement, which many interpreted as a stern message to Iran, which is believed to be supporting Hamas.
President Biden will underscore our crystal clear message to any actor, state or non-state, trying to take advantage of this crisis to attack Israel. Don't.
More so, the announcement of Biden's visit comes hours after Iran's foreign minister warned of preemptive action against Israel. In a live broadcast to state TV on Monday night, he said that the resistance leaders will not allow Israel to do whatever it wants in Gaza. This was after he met with Hezbollah terror chief Hassan Nasrallah on Saturday. Like Hamas, Hezbollah, another militant group in Lebanon, is backed by Iran. The Iranian foreign minister's remarks came after Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi warned against the expansion of the Israel-Hamas war to other fronts. Let's not forget that all of this is happening as a ground offensive by Israel into Gaza seems imminent. It was just over the weekend that Israel directed the UN to evacuate about 1 million residents in North Gaza, triggering concerns that Israel would carry out a military operation in the enclave very soon. But could an operation like this force Israel into a two-front war where it's fighting not just Hamas in the south, but Hezbollah in the north? Or worse, could an intervention by Israel into Gaza draw Iran and the US into the conflict? These are questions that Biden will most likely deliberate when meeting the top Israeli leadership today. The humanitarian situation in Gaza and Israel's blockage of food, water and electricity is likely to also be an important topic of discussion, since Western countries who have backed Israel have also been under pressure to speak on the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza and the exodus of thousands of Gazans who have nowhere to go. For our second topic, we're looking at the messaging coming out of Europe on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Let's start with the video of a Spanish minister's stinking remarks against Israel that have gone viral. On Monday, Ione Belarra, Spanish Minister of Social Rights, accused Israel of carrying out a planned genocide in the Gaza Strip and committing war crimes such as blocking access of food, water and humanitarian aid. She referred to this as an act of collective punishment against Palestinians and a war crime. She also called for Israel PM Benjamin Netanyahu to be brought before the International Criminal Court for war crimes.
Me dirijo a todas vosotras y vosotros con el corazón absolutamente encogido por las imágenes que nos llegan desde Palestina. Desde Podemos no somos indiferentes al atroz sufrimiento que el pueblo palestino lleva viviendo durante décadas. Hoy queremos alzar nuestra voz para denunciar que el Estado de Israel está llevando a cabo un genocidio planificado en la Franja de Gaza, dejando sin luz, sin comida y sin agua a cientos de miles de personas y llevando a cabo bombardeos sobre población civil que son un castigo colectivo, incumplen gravemente el derecho internacional y pueden considerarse crímenes de guerra. Ante esto, Estados Unidos y la Unión Europea no es solo que miren hacia otro lado, es que están jaleando al Estado de Israel en su política de apartheid y de ocupación que vulnera gravemente los derechos humanos. Usar los terribles asesinatos de civiles israelíes por parte de las facciones armadas palestinas como excusa para justificar los crímenes de Israel en general y la masacre en Gaza en particular es algo absolutamente inaceptable.
Belarra's comments are critical as they expose what seems to be a lack of a united stance in Europe on the Israel-Hamas conflict. We needn't look further than the comments from the President of the European Commission and the EU's foreign policy chief. Last week, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen landed in Israel to extend full support to the country. She held a press conference alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, stating Europe stands with Israel and Israel has the right to defend itself. In fact, it has the duty to defend its people. There was little mentioned in her speech about the humanitarian crisis in Israel and the cutting of food, water and electricity to Palestinians. While Ursula von der Leyen had this to say, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell seems to take a different line than that. On 10th October, he was very critical over the lack of food, water and electricity in Gaza, accusing the Israeli government of in fact breaking international law by imposing such a siege. He also revealed that after holding an emergency meeting to discuss the repercussions of the attack, an overwhelming majority of EU foreign ministers supported continuing aid payments for the Palestinian Authority. Borrell said last week, a collective punishment against all Palestinians will be unfair and unproductive. Ursula von der Leyen has also gotten flack from members within the European Parliament. In fact, on Monday, Claire Daly, a member of the European Parliament from Ireland, said von der Leyen should speak for herself and asked why the EU is not calling for a ceasefire. How dare von der Leyen declare Europe stands with Israel? She does not speak for me. She does not speak for Ireland, Daly said.
And when the EU should have been arguing for a ceasefire, for the upholding of international law, for the protection of civilians, Ursula von der Leyen touches down in Tel Aviv to photo op the preparation of a genocide and says Europe stands with Israel now and in the days to come. How dare she? She has no authority in foreign affairs matter. She does not speak for me. She does not speak for Ireland, and she does not speak for the citizens of Europe.
Now, apart from the different messaging coming from various corners of Europe on this conflict, we've continually seen this term collective punishment when people speak about the situation in Gaza. It's worth looking into why this is such a loaded term. The reason why is because under Article 33 of the Geneva Conventions, collective punishment is considered a war crime prohibited by treaty in both international and non-international armed conflicts. It prohibits collective punishment of prisoners of war or other protected persons for acts committed by individuals during an armed conflict. Now, this term briefly did the rounds when Russia attacked energy infrastructure in Ukraine that caused power outages for many civilians during the harsh winter months. In fact, in October 2022, Ursula von der Leyen termed Russia's attempts to cut off electricity and heating to civilians amid the Ukraine war as acts of pure terror. For our last topic, we're looking at the IMF's projections for various economies, which were released last week but didn't really get enough attention. First off, the projections don't seem so rosy for advanced economies. Projections for economic growth in such economies has consistently dropped from 2.6% in 2022 to 1.5% in 2023 and 1.4% in 2024. Now, these projections are well below the historical average of 3.8% that has been recorded from 2000 to 2019. However, the US's projections don't seem that bad despite all the aid it's providing to Ukraine and Israel. US is projected to grow 1.5% in 2024, which seems much better than the projections we're seeing for European countries like France, Germany, and others. In fact, in an interview with Sky News recently, the US Treasury Secretary said America can certainly afford to send military assistance to both Israel and Ukraine. Meanwhile, the IMF projections say emerging markets and developing economies have a modest decline growth from 4.1% in 2022 to 4.0% in both 2023 and 2024. But there's one which isn't doing so well relatively, and that is China. In IMF's latest report, it explains the wide global divergences in economic growth. The slowdown is more pronounced in advanced economies than in emerging markets and developing ones. Within advanced economies, the US seems to have resilient consumption and investment, while Europe has seen a lot of recessionary trends and its projections have been revised downward. But there's one line which definitely stands out in the IMF's latest analysis. Many emerging market economies proved quite resilient and surprised on the upside, with a notable exception of China, facing growing headwinds from its real estate crisis and weakening confidence. The annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank also concluded last weekend, during which discussions mostly focused on debt weighing down the world economy, inflation, and the growing wealth gap between rich and poor countries. Limping was a common adjective used to describe the global economy during these meetings. That said, global inflation is expected to continue to drop from 6.9% this year to 5.8% next year as central banks across the world continue to keep their monetary policies tight. Thank you so much for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.